right, chapter 14, the last for his teachings. My friends, the purpose and meaning of life are no longer hidden from you, and you know why men should follow the way of good rather than the way of evil. Every restraint and every restriction, every responsibility, every duty and obligation, however obscure the purpose, are imposed with only one end in view, your own ultimate benefit and good. Everything unnecessary or purposeless has been winnowed away, and only the sustaining grains remain. Nothing not worthwhile has been kept. Yet there is another reason for following this path, for by refining and strengthening the soul spirit and awakening all its latent powers, each man is potentially a man god. He is no longer restricted to this sphere and can even contact greater beings beyond the mountain and from them learn the truth. Life itself is real, but as expressed in the sphere of matter and mortality, it is more than an illusion. The true being lives elsewhere, and where it lives, man awakes to eternity. The illusion vanishes, and he is confronted with the real. In this sphere, man dwells in bondage to a belief in the reality of the illusion. He is attached to passing shadows. He seeks to grasp something of substance in a place where nothing is true, substantial, and unchanging. Grind a stone to powder, and the powder to a powder of powder, and in the end you will have something tangible. Such is the basis of this unsubstantial place. My friends, you know too well how few soul spirits are awakened from their slumber on the soft couches of agnosia. Of those who do wake to consciousness are some who did so quickly and lovingly embrace the great light. They seek diligently and carefully for the tree of love and eagerly eat its nourishing fruit. Those are the noble spirits, the truly illuminated among men. A ray from the sphere of the Holy Spirit pours the vigor of renewed spiritual life into them, and they become more than men. You wonder why there are so few awakened, but is it not man himself, by his own folly and blindness, his own spiritual apathy, who has slammed shut the gate leading to the road of enlightenment? Perhaps the truth is that man declines the necessary spiritual effort. It is your task to sound the awakening call, to rouse man from his spiritual drowsiness and stir him into action. Do not concern yourselves overmuch regarding the nature of the Supreme Spirit. He is a being incomprehensible to those with only the limited faculties of the lower spheres. He exists within a divine principle upon which speculation is impossible, since it lies beyond the limits of mortal conception. Only the truly illuminated ones, the noble spirits, can approach the border of understanding, for they can see from afar. The treasures of his sanctuary are the ultimates of love, beauty, perfection, truth, justice, compassion, and goodness. I am asked how this faraway, formless one, awesome in changelessness, whose spirit fills the whole universe, can be worshipped. My friends, how can he be influenced from the lower depths of his creation? Can rain wet the sky or rivers fill the ocean? Concerning the form of worship, which is praise and prayer, do you think that doleful chants, mournful music, and mumbled prayer add to his glory or fill his heart with joy? These are gifts gathered from the woodland. Far more acceptable would be a freely dedicated heart purged of evil, the offering of a body wherein lust and unhealthy desires has been uprooted, the display of a mouth untainted by lewdness and falsehood, and the showing of integrity, honesty, and purity. True worship is the purification and elevation of the soul spirit, no more. All that purifies and elevates is worship. The purpose of worship is to arouse the soul spirit to wakefulness. It is the companionable unity of those serving a common cause. It is an act of mutual experience. It is not the servile humiliation of a slave before his master, but the linking of spirit with spirit. These are the only sacrifices to bring. bodily lusts and passions, evil thoughts, lies, deceit, slander, and all forms of wickedness. To offer the blood of harmless creatures is easy and cowardly, and an insult to he who created them. These are the offerings to dedicate to his service: diligent study of the good book, wisdom, courage, moral purity, and steadfastness, together with all things serving the purpose of good. The only vestment needed for worship is a loyal, kind, and pure heart. To act as men do when worshiping is to belittle the Supreme Spirit. How can one so great be worshipped and served by fires and candles, by mumbled words falling thoughtlessly on unhearing ears, by sacrificial blood, and by ornament and incense? These things may serve a purpose in aiding man's awakening, but it is hypocritical to say they are necessary to the Supreme Spirit, and blasphemy to say he requires them from man. The Supreme Spirit rises above the thinking of men and says, if such things please man, then let the offerer become the recipient. The truly enlightened worship by a compliment in trying to match their purity and goodness with the reflection of these qualities coming down from on high. The ennobling of the lesser self, goodness in thought, word, and deed, the subjection of material urges, and constant disciplining of the body, and unwavering devotion to the cause of mankind, which is the cause of the Supreme Spirit. This is true worship, providing they are not clouded with hypocrisy. Worship serves the soul spirit and therefore is beneficial if sincere. Many have felt it first restless stirring in worship. My friends, how sad that the greatest treasure there is, the jewel beyond price, the soul spirit, still remains so often buried out of sight, unheeded, unsought, unwanted. Nothing is more impressionable than the soul spirit, and every act forms a guide to its future appearance. Thus, it is that every experience tends towards a repetition, and so a habit, good or bad, once formed, is hard to break. It is like water which cuts a channel, all other water follows. Man has a material sounding board called the brain, which means a drum skin, and this is very apt. However, if it is battered with impure desires or taken over by worldliness, it thickens and becomes a barrier against the spiritual forces. The brain, made dense with insensitivity and calloused by wickedness, forms a door which closes out all things of the spirit and becomes the servant of the senses. It no longer admits the light, and what light does penetrate becomes disguised and distorted into gloom. The door to the soul spirit becomes overgrown with weeds and brambles. The material and spiritual are separated by an immovable barrier, and the soul spirit slumbers while the body decays. Lacking the light, ensnared in sorrow and smothered in agnosia, degraded and sunk in the depths of matter, the soul spirit languishes and pines. Mercifully unconscious, it is pounded, twisted, and torn, uncared for and unheeded, its infant cries falling upon deaf and deadened ears. Slowly it is smothered under the great overburden of wickedness and worldliness. Little need you wonder why the dark spirits are so often called abortions. Man, having chosen to spurn spirituality and thus lost the union in consciousness which is his birthright, now seeks to console himself with worthless worldly baubles. With the arrogance of ignorance and blindness, he claims the reality of his environment, endeavors to possess something outside of himself, something to which he is half alien. The striving for worldly things still further buries the inner divinity, which becomes so encased in materialism that it can no longer be roused from its deadly slumber. While man turns his soul spirit outwards towards the elusive and deceptive world of matter and mortality, seeking fulfillment there, so long will he be unaware of his greater being. Here he will never find true contentment, and cut off from companionable communication with his true self, he will remain restless and dissatisfied. He will be always seeking for something, though he knows not what. The greatness of the soul spirit, with all its potential powers, a true spark from the fire of divinity, is now smothered under layers of worldliness formed by pandering to the body experiences of the senses. The true being becomes a prisoner within a material prison of man's own creation. Life is like a wide river containing the waters of manifestation deeply clouded by the silt of illusion, wherein the soul spirits of men swim back and forth. The Supreme Spirit is reflected in the waters through his rays of Holy Spirit, just as a mirror reflects the face of the looker while itself remaining untouched. The image in the waters is the soul spirit. Those who say they can find the Supreme Spirit through means outside of themselves will seek in vain. What they will find will be worthless pebbles. The real jewel lies within. Only when the unreal is revealed for what it is and penetrated in consciousness can the real come into sight. This can be proved beyond any dispute by personal experience, but few care to pay the price of such knowledge. The waters of illumination cannot be gathered on the heights of arrogant self-assurance or on the hilltop of prejudice. Neither can they be drawn from the valley of apathy or the dale of agnosia. I am asked concerning the people about us. They are not altogether ignorant in their teachings, and it is not amiss to understand what they declare about the nature of man. They say he is a divine thought caught up in heaviness and wrapped about in clay, with clay. The thought imprisoned in darkness, desire to see the light, and the effort generated by the desire caused two holes to appear in the clay, and these became eyes. One of them looked to the right of things, and the other to the left, and so directed straightly. No eyes appeared behind, as the divine thought never intended man to retreat, only to go forward. The eyes, being fixed on the path ahead, wished to know what was going on beside them, and so the effort generated by this desire brought forth two holes, which became ears. Because the clay desired to remain moist, a mouth was formed to provide water, and the arms were formed to push aside whatever got in the way. So that it might know more of what is happening about, the clay became sensitive and felt. So they say man is a divine thought trapped in a body and seeking to escape. They say the body is no more than clay reddened by sunlight, and can anyone say this is not a good description?